if you drive a BMW vehicle 1 mile per hour to get from one coast of the United States, it would take you multiple days just to drive across one country. And in all that space, there's bound to be some very bizarre places, ranging all the way from oversized salt licks, all the way up to literal mountains. I know, I couldn't believe it either. The US is home to some cool and wackily bizarre places, and in this video, I'll be crowning one of these locations as the weirdest of them all. And I will give them the Weirder Than Jeremy C award. And if you don't know who Jeremy C is, I didn't either, but according to LinkedIn, he's from Tennessee, because he's the only 10 I see. Which is a weird thing to say as a straight guy to another guy, hence why I named the award what I did. And the most normal place out of this list will receive a participation award. No one else will receive one, only the last place. And I'll rank them on this handy list, haha! So, starting with our first location, we have the Bonneville Salt Flats in Utah. These salt flats are located in northwestern Utah, and what it is basically just 40 square miles of pure salt that is 1 to 5 feet thick depending on the area. It was deposited there from dried up salt lakes in the region. It could properly season all British food for multiple years. These salt flats are used for cool purposes too. There's a raceway on these salt flats, and this is where people in the region try to get the highest land speed they can with their vehicle. Also, if you go when there's a thin layer of water at these flats, you can get some super great photography like what's being shown, and it looks like you're walking on water. This place is very unique, and there are other salt flats in the world, like Bolivia, but they're still rare enough that it is pretty cool. And we have nothing else, so it's in the middle of the chart, but I'm going to put it closer to the top. It's cool. Have you ever wondered how you could receive better internet service in some of the most remote places in the world that we are talking about? Because I have no clue why you'd possibly care. On to our next extremely weird location is a small town of Whittier, Alaska. Located on the southern coast of Alaska, this town has a population of 300 residents. And what makes it so unique is that almost all of the residents of this town live and do everything in just one building. The Big Beach Tower is a giant building you'd expect to be in a city of 100,000 people, but instead it houses just the entire population of this town, along with most of the businesses and public facilities that this town has. You could easily live your entire life without leaving this building if you really wanted to, because there's pretty much an entire town in here. The town is so cold and remote outside that half the year leaving the place would require a tank with 4-wheel drive just to leave, and a prayer you wouldn't hit some random 4-foot-tall pole buried in the snow somewhere. These towers contain a grocery store, post office, a laundromat, offices, a church, anything you could want. Having a giant tower in a small town is already strange, but having all your citizens live in that building is even weirder. Maybe it's not quite as weird as a plain of salt though, so I'm putting it just below the salt flats, right there. The next place that is crazy enough to knock your socks off is the hottest place in the world. In fact, it's hotter than your girlfriend. Nah, I'm just kidding about that one. I'm talking about Death Valley, California. Death Valley has gone all the way up to 134 degrees Fahrenheit, 56.5 Celsius. You could safely cook a steak at that heat. The average daily temperature high is approximately 90 Fahrenheit, 30 Celsius, which is really hot if you think about how that's year-round, including the winter and summer. The reason is because it's surrounded by very tall mountains that kind of trap the heat within it. And there's very little animal life overall. Most of the animals that can survive here are very well adapted to the environment and just look like your typical animal that would live in a desert. There are some plant species, but they're spread apart because it's so hot and the cloud cover is also very little, letting the sun simmer the ground like a blender inside of a campfire. You know, blenders get pretty hot inside of campfires. It looks like a pretty normal desert. The look isn't what's crazy. It's the fact that it's just hotter than anywhere else on Earth that makes it pretty crazy. It's kind of unique. It looks pretty generic. It's very hard to decide if it's more unique than Whittier, Alaska. But so far, I think it's in line for the Weirder Than Jeremy C award, right at the top here. Continuing the trend of super strange places in the middle of nowhere, we have an active supervolcano that could throw our entire civilization into a dark age if it blows up. We have Yellowstone Park in Wyoming and Montana. It is a state park with beautiful waterfalls, gorges, hills, and wildlife. But the most defining feature of it is that it's all beneath an active supervolcano that, if it exploded, would cover the entire atmosphere of Earth with a layer of ash that would drop Earth's temperature by 20 Fahrenheit, 8 Celsius, which would cause kind of a dark age for the Earth, and also destroy everything in the Midwest and in the West too, by covering it all in a layer of ash that would ruin all the farmland and most of the civilization throughout the Midwest and West Coast. And it is overdue to erupt, so it could erupt sometime in the near future. Within the park, the active supervolcano beneath it causes super cool landforms like hundreds of geysers which spew hot water, and the most famous one, Old Faithful. Old Faithful spews hot water once every hour pretty regularly. And it has super cool sulfur ponds, tons of thermal activity, which creates boiling ponds too, that smell pretty bad, but are super unique. Yellowstone is well known, but it's well known for a reason. It's so beautiful and unique, and also scary to everyone on Earth. This combination makes it so I just have to put it at the top. It's just crazy. Crazy? I was crazy once. Up next is another very strange small town, also in Wyoming. Yeah, Wyoming is a state with a ton of strange places. This town is called Jackson. This town is a tax haven for the ultra-wealthy. It contains billionaire mansions with gourmet restaurants that serve $200 steaks. In the same town is small apartment complexes with rust bucket cars in the parking lot. In a small town where they're in pretty close proximity. It's pretty odd to see the insanely rich close to the average Wyoming citizen, but it does kind of price out the locals from being able to afford goods in their town, because a lot of the goods are just made for extremely rich people to afford. It's nothing that crazy, it's odd, but nothing life-changing crazy in it. It's strange, but I'm going to say it's at the bottom for its relative normalcy compared to all the other interesting places here. You know, maybe it'll get the participation award. You know, I've realized that aliens really don't care that much about the Earth outside of the USA. If you need any proof, just ask whoever owns Area 51. They're friends with E.T. from the movie E.T., Paul from the movie Paul, and Wally from the movie Wall-E. Area 51 is a top-secret government location in Nevada, and if I'm being honest, there's aliens living in there somewhere. The aliens are either in Area 51 or their Bermuda Triangle. The politicians say that it's a secret government testing site to test out special military equipment. And that one is kind of scary too. The kind of technology the US has is probably pretty scary, and we don't really know anything about it. And the fact that they need a testing site in the middle of nowhere shows its secrecy. The closest thing to the base, 25 miles away, is another military base. So whatever they're hiding there, aliens or some sort of technology, is pretty scary. People tried to storm the place and didn't really find that much out about it. And that's probably for a reason. It's a little scary, but whatever little green men live there, hopefully they're at least protecting the American citizens. It's a pretty chilling and definitely strange place. Maybe not quite as weird as Yellowstone, but it's up there. I'll put it right below Yellowstone. A lot of weird stuff happens in the rural western US. I hope y'all are learning that. Continuing with the strange western US trend, we have the Great Salt Lake in Utah, next to the major city of Salt Lake City. This is the body of water that originally held the dried up salt flats that we talked about earlier. But it's super interesting in a different way because it is 10 times saltier in the ocean, and you can float on it very easily due to its high salinity. You could probably put life jackets on your feet and walk on water, but I don't live in Utah, so if you live in Salt Lake City, you should test it out. I'm intrigued. The only thing that can live in these waters are brine shrimp because of how just salty it is. And drinking it is not good for you, but it's probably not much worse than a high-sodium lunchly meal. To make the area even weirder, it's next to Salt Lake City, which is a city pretty much run by the Mormon Church, which has a very unique backstory and makes the city a very weird place to be. Along with the state of Utah just having a government pretty much led by Mormons, making it one of the most unique states in the region. The area is just bizarre with the Salt Lake and its odd Mormon culture. It's pretty bizarre, but there are some stranger places on the list, and the Dead Sea is just a stranger version and bigger version of the Salt Lake. So I'll put it above the Salt Flats nearby. I'm going to put it around the middle here. I'm going to put it beneath Death Valley. Pretty strange, not crazy. Finally leaving the western US, we have Mount Washington, located in New Hampshire. Mount Washington is the highest peak east of the Mississippi River at 6,300 feet above sea level. Doesn't sound that tall, but I guess it's the tallest one. And what separates this mountain from all the boring Joe mountains around it, take that, Joe. This mountain is known for its extremely erratic weather. Due to the fact that it is the highest mountain around it for many, many miles, all the cold wind is blown against it, making its weather one of the most dramatic on Earth. It had the highest wind speed in the world ever recorded on Earth for 50 years until 1996. And that was 231 miles per hour, which is really fast. That's literally faster than a race car going 230 miles per hour. And the temperature can drop to extreme cold in hours where it really feel like it shouldn't. It is one of the deadliest mountains in the USA, and you would not expect that due to its approachable look. It can get all the way down to negative 28 degrees, when everywhere around it should be at least 50 degrees. There can be blizzards on this mountain in the middle of the summer. This mountain has a body count of 161, and I don't even want to know what diseases it has. For a very innocent-looking mountain, it has way more fatalities than you would expect. Even many experienced hikers have died here. It's pretty strange. I would say even more so than Death Valley. It's not quite as strange as Yellowstone or Area 51, but I'll put it right below them and above Death Valley, because a blizzard in the summer on a very short mountain is pretty bizarre. Staying on the East Coast, we now have a spot that everyone and their mama is familiar with, New York City. It really is one of the most unique places in the US. Like, Times Square is one of the most unique looking places in the world, in my opinion. Also, New Yak has a very different vibe from the rest of the US, and even the rest of the cities. There is literally skyscrapers everywhere, unlike any other city. There's just nowhere else quite like it in the US. It also has such a large cultural influence compared to the rest of the US cities, and it really is pretty bizarre. Like, the Statue of Liberty, look at it and tell me it doesn't look a little bit odd. It might be pretty normal compared to the rest of this list. I'd say it's the lowest compared to the rest of the odd places, but it is just so unique from the rest of the US in so many different ways, but I'll put it at the bottom. Now that we have the results, the only two contenders getting awards are New York City receiving the only participation award. No one in the middle gets any. My list, my rules, you little nerd. And who gets the Weirder Than Jeremy C award? It goes to the strangest, most bizarre place in the United States. Yellowstone receives this award. I'm sending it to the entity of Yellowstone in the mail, who will receive it and be honored that they are weirder than Jeremy C. And hopefully put it on one of their geysers or something. Comment your opinion on this or don't. Have a nice day, and God bless.